Hi, in this session I am going to discuss type 1 error, type 2 error and the power of hypothesis test. In hypothesis testing, we are faced with the following options. The first one is reject the null hypothesis. The second one is fail to reject or retain null hypothesis. Type 1 and type 2 errors are defined as follows. First, let us look at type 1 error. Conditional probability of rejecting null hypothesis when it is true is called type 1 error or false positive, falsely believing that the claim made in the alternative hypothesis is true. The significance value alpha is the maximum value of type 1 error. Mathematically, type 1 error is a conditional probability. So, we can write type 1 error. This is a conditional probability which is conditional probability of rejecting null hypothesis given the condition that the null hypothesis is true, that is when H naught is true. The maximum value of type 1 error is alpha. It is important to understand that the difference between the p value and the significance value. P value or the probability value is the evidence against the null hypothesis. If a p value is 0.03, it will imply that there is only a 3% chance that the null hypothesis is true. The significance value alpha is the error based on repetitive sampling. Hubbard stated that the p value in a hypothesis test refers to the probability of observing the data given the null hypothesis is true, whereas the significance value alpha refers to incorrect rejection of null hypothesis when it is true under repeated trials. Now, let us try to understand type 2 error. The conditional probability of failing to reject a null hypothesis or retaining a null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true is called type 2 error or false negative, that is falsely believing that there is no relationship. Usually, type 2 error is denoted by the Greek symbol beta. Mathematically, type 2 error can be defined as conditional probability of retaining null hypothesis when null hypothesis is false. That is, the type 2 error we usually write type 2 error as beta. This is conditional probability of retaining null hypothesis given the null hypothesis is false, that is H naught is false. The value 1 minus beta is known as the power of hypothesis test. That is, the power of hypothesis test is given by 1 minus beta, which is 1 minus of probability of retaining the null hypothesis given H naught is false. That is, 1 minus beta is the power of hypothesis test. This is nothing but 1 minus probability of retain null hypothesis given the null hypothesis is false. I can also say this same as probability of rejecting null hypothesis when null hypothesis is false. The description of type 1 error and type 2 error along with the power of hypothesis test is shown in this table.